The rainbow moonstone that I am going to show you how to make a fairly realistic imitation of is actually not the real moonstone, but it is a type of labradorite. The main difference, because both of them, a regular rainbow moonstone is a moonstone that has a blue Schiller effect, but the main difference is that the true moonstone has adularescence. That is, that Schiller effect never disappears. It's always like under the surface of the stone, while the labradorescence disappears depending on the angle you are looking at the stone. So as you can see in these labradorites, the blue Schiller effect, the labradorescence, appears and disappears, and the same happens with the rainbow moonstone. In a true rainbow moonstone, that is not a variety of labradorite, that blue flash never disappears completely. It's always there, no matter which angle you're looking at the stone from. So can we do that in polymer clay? I think that we can, with a fairly good result, like you can see. So I'm showing you both Premo and Pardo. Let's go with Pardo first. We shall need translucent on the third thinnest setting and a mix of 1 part platinum and 6 parts translucent on the thinnest manageable setting. And then we just create a fairly messy and random pile by alternating chunks of that we rip out of each of the sheets. And as I said, we create a ragged stack. Try not to put 2 sheets of the same translucent or translucent with the platinum on top of the other, because we are trying to create that fine network, like the crystalline webbing. And then once you make your stack, flatten it and then deform it a little bit. You don't need to do like a mokumegane, no, not at all. Just a little bit of deformation to make sure that that webbing does not look like a straight grid or wire mesh, but it has a more regular, because the labradorite itself doesn't really crystallize. Very rarely it forms crystals. It's more of an amorphous texture, so that is what we are trying to imitate here. Then once you make your stack, you can flatten it, and then you can do a more deformation, but don't do it too much. Finally, create a little rectangle from which you can cut your cabochon pieces. Just cut pieces that you think will fit in your cabochons. You can see that I have placed to the side a few thin slices, and you will see in a moment what we are going to do with them. But in the meantime, let's make a few cabochons. And what you have to keep in mind, number one, of course, make sure that your molds are very clean, but because we are working with translucent here. But keep in mind that when you make these cabochons, what is right now the back of the cabochon will be the front of your final cabochon. We cannot really, I mean, I did try, but it doesn't come up very nicely to try and do designer type cabochons with this technique, so let's just stick to the molds. As you can see, I am using a Sculpey mold and a best flexible molds. And then I am using also the ArtAlchemy Opal Magic acrylic paint. The Opal Magic is a line, yes, I know, you know about the Opal Magic waxes. And here we will use the Opal Magic acrylic paint on Pardo, and on Premo we shall also use the Opal Magic mica powder. So I applied a little bit of Opal Magic acrylic paint on the what was the base of the cabochons, and then I'm covering that area with The slices, those thin slices that I cut from the stack, that I have run through the pasta machine on the thinnest possible setting. I am making sure that I don't trap any air pockets in there. That is the main thing you need to be very careful about, because otherwise your cabochon will be ruined. Then just place the cabochons facing down with the former back of the cabochon, the one that you have placed the acrylic paint on, and then you covered with a thin sheet. In the Premo section that's coming up in a minute or two, I will show you more detailed how to apply the acrylic paint, because there is a trick to it. Also, yes, there are 6 colors of the Opal Magic acrylic paints, but I do not advise you to use any of the other ones, because the yellow blue is the only one that has very, very little pigment. Using the other ones will create a sheet of color that will completely destroy the realism of the stone, and that is exactly the main issue, because here we are trying to create a light color, not a pigment color. That is the main problem when trying to create stones like the labradorite or the fire opal, because they have flashes that are light colors, not pigment colors. Now, let's take it a little bit slower with Premo. First of all, you'll have to bleach your translucent with just a grain of ultramarine, because otherwise it's a little bit too yellowish, even the white translucent. And we use the same proportion, only that we use white pearl instead of platinum, of course. Still 1 part of white pearl to 6 parts of translucent. Make that one in a very thin sheet, and then create a random stack, and proceed exactly like you proceeded for the Pardo, including the little deformations. And as I said, this is not like a mokumegane, just slight deformations. And then the same way, create your little cabochons. As you can see, I have just taken the parts that were inside the stack, because those make the best fronts. And also remember the same thing, what is now the back of the cabochon will be the front of the final cabochon. Another thing that I am doing with Premo, just for a little bit more realism, because Premo moves a little bit different than Pardo, so I will actually slice off a very thin sheet from the base of the cabochons that I have made. You don't have to do this. You can use just plain that those slices cut on the thin, no, not cut, sorry, run through the pasta machine on the thinnest setting possible. If your machine shreds, please watch one of my latest Clay With Me Sundays, where I showed how to create faux gemstones using Pardo jewelry clay, because I showed there a trick to use to be able to run the clay through the pasta machine on the thinnest manageable setting without it being shredded by the machine. Now watch carefully. Here, less is more. If you are applying too much of the acrylic paint, you will create a sheet of color instead of a sheet of that traveling flashlight. So you see, I am smudging really good that acrylic paint, so that there will be a very, very, very thin sheen of it on the clay. And then on Premo, I am also going to apply a little bit of mica powder. Also of the Opal Magic line, there are only 4 in the Opal Magic mica powders, and you need the Blue Opal Magic. Why I did not apply that on Pardo? Because Pardo doesn't need that. Premo is a little bit less translucent and also a little bit more yellowish, so it needs a tad of encouragement. And also don't forget that Pardo does not like powders, so if you would put mica powder on the top of Pardo and then will try to stick a sheet on it, that will not work. and you wouldn't be able to put any kind of liquid clay because that would interfere with the translucence. So let's leave Pardo just with the plain acrylic paint and use the mica powder only on Premo. So as you can see, that is the flash. I have it there and it looks beautiful. And I'm going to cover each cabochon with very thin sheets of the slices that I cut from the bottom of those cabochons that now have become the front of the cabochons. And then when you create your cabochons, before doing anything else, again, very careful to not trap any kind of air pockets. And I use my roller for that, and then simply place the cabochon with what used to be the base of it, the back of it, in the front of the mold, and gently press with the roller to make sure that the clay has gone in all the nooks and crannies of the mold. And then that is it. You will have to be careful and check, the same as you need to do on Pardo, that you got no cracks on the face of the cabochon. And again, I have to insist, do not put too much acrylic paint, because yeah, it will be nice and shiny, but it will not look anymore like a rainbow moonstone. And believe me, I tried with all the acrylic paints, with these acrylic paints and with other things, and only the yellow blue gives the perfect effect for creating rainbow moonstones, at least of everything that I have tried. I mean, believe me, I tried those special interference powders. They don't do that. I mean, they do give some shimmer, but it's so faint that it's pretty much laughable. And yes, I will do at least one other tutorial on this subject. This is just a technique that I thought was very simple and not hard to do. I will make another tutorial on for rainbow moonstone that will be masterclass and will give even more realism. And you can see that I just keep doing my cabochons, and then soon it will be ready to bake, sand and buff. And let's see how we managed to imitate a real rainbow moonstone. So this is the real deal, and this is Premo. As you can see, the layer of color of the acrylic paint is more visible on Premo because Premo is more yellowish, while on the Pardo it is way less visible. But also the effect that the extra mica gives on Premo makes me honestly unable to say which of them I prefer. So it will be up to you if you want to try Premo or if you want to try Pardo. So good luck and have fun of making rainbow moonstones. Happy claying!